3 books, 34 book chapters, and edited 3 books, and 1 patent is published in his name. Sir has guided 15 MPhil students and 12 PhD scholars, and currently 4 PhD scholars are pursuing their degree with him. Sir has completed 1 UGC major research project worth of 9.71 lakhs and currently has 2 major projects from Ministry of Electronics and IT, New Delhi, each worth of rupees 50 lakhs. Sir has visited various countries to deliver his talk in international conferences, and very recently Sir has visited Malta for inter-university collaboration. Dr. Ravindra S. Hegde has delivered 52 keynote speeches, invited talks at national and international workshops, conferences, symposia, and many more. Sir has organized many workshops and conferences and collaborated with 3 national and international institutions. Sir, now the dais is yours.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
I will share my screen.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
So today I am going to present you a work which currently we are undertaking. That is, we are doing one of my research scholar, PhD scholar, who has worked under a project by Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology when I was in Solapur University. We have taken up this problem. In fact, he has done quite a good work in that. And based on that, we came to know that there are many challenges, particularly in medical images. So, since the theme of this conference is information technology and biology related to the medical science and all, so I thought this will be the best topic which can give a very detailed focus on how actually we need to conduct research in medical field, what are the challenges we are going to face. All these, because we have all undergone this, still we are undergoing so many problems. So it is very much necessary for particularly those youngsters who would like to take up the research in the field of medical imaging. So basically the work what I am going to present is, we have worked on development of a simulator, medical simulator. So we know that medical simulators are available in India, but most of the simulators that are available in India or wherever you take, they are not domestically developed. The simulators from other countries are being imported. They are very expensive. Particularly, they are beyond affordable for the government hospitals, health centers, and all. So, in given such a situation, I had met with one doctor at Mysore Medical College. He is a very good friend of me, and he proposed that why can't we go for a medical simulator? He given the idea of development of a medical simulator. So based on his ideas, initially we thought of developing a 3D simulator using X-ray images. So we all know that we can capture the CT scan, MRI, and all. The CT scan is, in fact, it is formed with the help of X-ray images, but they are quite expensive. These modalities are quite expensive, and they are not affordable for the common person. So we thought of going for only 2 images of X-ray and then generate a 3D view. In fact, I gave this problem to one of my student, and he couldn't continue with the work. Because of that, that work stopped there itself. But again, I had a discussion with the doctor. He was interested for the 3D simulators, particularly the simulators which can help in training when the doctors, when they were studying MS, Master of Surgery and all, when they want to go for a live surgery, then they need a certain training because when they go for a live surgery, the patient will be live. If they do any mistake, it will be horrible for the patient, and we know there are so many ethical rules are also there. So it becomes very difficult for any trainee to learn, the graduates to learn the surgery. Because of that, it get delayed. So when they want to do surgery, their ambition to do surgery will get delayed because they must have expertise in doing surgery. So if they have to learn, they have to attend so many surgeries with the seniors, they have to learn, and then they gradually start doing the surgery. So these simulators, in fact, will replace that manual, that is the surgery what they do on live patients. Here we will not have the dead patient also. There will not be any dead body also. These simulators are going to replace like this flight simulator. There are so many types of simulators. We have gaming concepts also. So it is quite similar to that. So these are going to replace the actual surgery, the practice we gain in the actual surgery, what the graduates they gain in the actual surgery, that will be replaced over here. So we all know that the computer science is a very emerging field, and we can use the expertise what we have in these computer-based expertise in developing such a simulators. So basically, when we want to develop such a simulator, what are the things we need? Basically, the computer-based expert system, what we expect, the simulators, what we call, they help in pre-operative outcome prediction system. That means when a doctor want to see the simulators, what we wanted to develop, it was not only having a training purpose, even it should be helpful in surgery also. How it will be helpful in surgery? When we capture the image, basically we have used CT scan here also. When we capture the image, it will build a 3D view, and suppose for example a patient comes with the for example a patient comes with the accident. Okay, he or she met accident, and bones are broken. In that case, first thing what the doctors will do, they will not take the patient to surgery table. First, immediately as soon as the patient arrives, they will conduct the test. So many other tests will be there apart from scanning, either X-ray or CT scan. If CT scan is available, better they will go for a CT scan because it will give you a 3D view of the entire image, entire body part. So once they capture the CT scan, again they will study it. Generally, surgery will be done next day. They will not take up the surgery immediately. Whatever the medication is required, that will be given to the patient, so that the patient should sustain the pain and all till the surgery is conducted. So during this time, the physicians will they will study these CT scan images, and they will understand the entire anatomy of the broken bone. So how many pieces it has broken, we will see more detail in coming slides. So how many pieces it has broken, what way they have to join, where they have to do stitching, where they have to do put the rods and all if required. So these are pre-studies they will do. So during these pre-studies also our simulators can help. That is, we call it as a pre-operative preparations. So our simulator can definitely help in pre-operative outcome prediction system. That means before conducting the surgery, they will study about the entire anatomy of the accident, place of accident in the body part of the accident, and then they will do preparation accordingly. What devices they have to use, how much body part need to be cut, how much exposure has to be done, what kind of stitching has to be done, all those pre-operative prediction or study they will do. So there also these simulators can play very important role. Then interoperative assistant system during operations also. Many a times what happens during the operation, suppose the accident is a very severe, then there is possibility that the displacement of bones may also happen. Some pieces may have got displaced. So in the CT scan, it may be difficult to understand where displacement and all happened. So these simulators will give exact picture of the entire bone structure, and that will definitely help in conducting the surgery. During surgery also, they will help. Then the virtual reality based skill trainer simulators, they also act as VR based skill simulator for training the people, for training the graduates. Then basically we can find two things here: computer aided detection system and computer aided diagnosis system. So both we are going to study more in detail. So our focus was in the entire research, our focus was to design and develop the computer-aided detection and computer-aided diagnosis system for analysis and treat complex bone fracture. So that was our main focus in this entire research. So before moving on to the simulators, what we are working on, we have to understand anatomy of these bones, how actually they are built, what kind of pre-operative prediction they perform and all. So generally used by experts, these pre-operative outcome predictions are being used by experts before conduct of the treatment, before going for actual surgery. As I was telling, when a patient comes with when a patient who has met with the accident or maybe fallen down and bone has got fractured, so as soon as the patient arrives, they will not directly go for surgery. They will do one study on that. They will understand how actually what way the bone has broken. So for that, whatever the tests are required, they will conduct all of them. Generally, there will be blood test, all those things, and then CT scan they will take, X-ray or CT scan they will take. So these basically help in finding the alternative way to execute surgery. So they will not have a single way. That means we have to conduct only one particular way of surgery. That will not be in the mind of the physicians. They will have multiple ways. So we can go for X way, Y way, Z way. So if we go for X way of conducting the surgery, what will be the procedure to be followed? Y way, what should be the procedure followed? So like that, they will prepare a detailed surgical procedure that need to be followed when they go for a particular way of conducting the surgery. So at that time, these simulators will play very important role. So ultimately, when they go for a surgery, they will finalize on one particular way and they will conduct it. Then identifying possible misinterpretations during actual surgery. So what happens when we think something actual scenario, it will be something else. We may be thinking that the bone must have been broken into two pieces, but it may have broken into multiple pieces also. There may be hair cracks also, which may not be visible in X-ray or CT scans. So when the doctors actually go for, when the surgeons actually go for surgery, at that situation, they may understand that the scene may be different. So there also these simulators play important role. Then deciding required implants to conduct the surgery. So during the pre-operative prediction itself, they will entirely decide what implants they have to put, okay, which part is to be removed, which implant has to be placed in that. So all these details they will decide during the pre-operative preparations. Then improve surgery success ratio. That will be ultimately everyone's goal, that when they conduct surgery, they have to come out with 100% success. That will be everyone's ultimate motto. But many a times we know many of these surgeries also fail, or they may not achieve 100% success. Later, the patient will face so many problems. There will be pains and all. And in fact, many of the doctors are so negligent. They leave scissors, they leave knife, they leave cotton inside the human body. This kind of scenes we have seen. This kind of situations we have seen in many of the papers and all. We have read about it. So here one image is shown, which shows a 3D hip replacement surgery planning system. You can see a hip. Hip means it's a bone part between leg and the rest of the body. There, the hip may have broken, and they are replacing the hip with the implants. So we all know that implants are artificial bones. Okay, in fact, they may be having bony part, or they may be containing metallic part also. So when there is a wear and tear, generally the persons will go for implant. You can see the last image, the implant has been placed. So this is a picture of how implant happens. So but before that, they have to do all these planning before conduct of the surgery. They have to go for all this planning, then only they will be able to go for conducting surgery. So then during the operation, interoperative surgery, what we call. So you can see here one picture, that is robotic assisted surgery is there. So there it's an actual picture. No doctors are there, but doctors are monitoring. So these robots won't conduct surgery by themselves. Actually, the surgeons sitting far away in any place, maybe in other countries also, they will be controlling these robots and they will be conducting the surgery. So the robots will follow the instruction given by the physicians. They may be having the gloves and all to operate as soon as they move the finger, the action will happen over here also. So this is a robotic assisted intraoperative replacement surgery. So during the conduct of the surgery, basically we need simulator assist experts during the surgery. They help during the surgery. See, when even they are using the robots, they are continuously watching. They will be seeing the video on the screen. Okay, live video, what is happening at the surgery table. Okay, what is happening to the patient, and then they will be making the moves. They will be conducting the surgery. So these simulators will give insight about the part which is being where the operation is being conducted, like the knee replacement, knee part and all. Then the mechanical task will also be these simulators will also help in doing the mechanical tasks. So in fact, we will come to, when we look at the simulator more in detail, we will understand the simulator, even if there is no human body, the simulator will exactly give the drilling depth, feeling of the drilling depth, then feeling of the sawing, feeling of the pressure, all these kind of feeling they will give us. Okay, when suppose for example we have we have assumed that the bone is very soft, then when we try to drill using the simulator, there is no bone, there is no human body, but we are trying to use the simulator and we are trying to drill. If the bone is smooth, the drilling will happen very fast. That means it will punch the body very fast. But if the bone is having a high density, then the drilling will be very slow. Okay, that feeling it will give. The simulator will give that feeling to the person who is operating the simulator. So then you can see this is a robotic assisted surgery where the robots are performing the surgery. These here also the simulator plays very important role. Then these robots are simulators. In fact, can be used for skill or task training purpose also. They can act as a simulator for the training, as I was telling. So when we consider these as a skill trainer, okay, when we use them as a skill training purpose, you can see in the other picture at the right side, you can see there is a bone, there is a computer, and a simulator is put over there, and they are interconnected. And whatever the simulator, whatever the drilling happens, that will be watched in the personal computer, and we can see how effective it is being conducted and all. So basically these simulators provide us a patient-free environment, a controlled patient-free environment, as well as unhurried environment.
I'll repeat this in my exam.
Okay. So sorry. So basically, these simulators will provide us a patient-free environment. See, when we are using the simulator, there will not be any live patient. So we will have a patient-free environment, and it is a controlled environment. Controlled environment will means everything will be under our control. Then unhurried environment. See, generally when we want to conduct the surgery, we cannot keep the patient on the surgical bed for a very long time, because we have to give the physicians, the surgeons will give anesthesia, and if anesthesia time exceeds, then there is a risk for the life of the patient also. So here there is no such hurriness will be there. So leisurely you can do, very coolly you can conduct the simulation. That is the advantage of the simulators. Then repeated practice can be possible here. You can do any number of practice over these simulators, and with the minimum cost. Why? Because the patient will not be there here. Instead, we will use the dummy bones. We will use use the plastic bones, fiber bones. Okay, these are all available already in the markets and all. So you can conduct any number of surgeries. You can simulations of a surgery. You can conduct. You can drill any number of time. You can do anything, any number of time over here. So it is even, it doesn't cost you much also. Then use virtual augmented reality possibility with haptic technology to provide force tactile feedback. So you all know that haptic device will give us a feeling of how much force we are applying. In fact, we have acquired one haptic device. So it will, even in the air also, if I try to push, it will give that feeling. It will give that pressure to us, that when we are drilling, we will actually feel like we have a drilling machine and we are trying to drill something over there. That kind of feeling it will give. So this feeling will come when we want to use a simulator. When we want to use the simulator and simulate the surgical scenario. And then help in teaching, training, assessment of various orthopedic psychomotor skills and surgical procedures. So basically, they will help in training purpose, teaching as well as training purpose. So when the trainer is training, the senior surgeon, when they are training to the graduates, surgical, that is master of surgery graduates, when they are training them, these simulators play a very important role. They can give them many number of trainings, and even the trainers can practice on that. They can conduct the practical on that. Okay, so this will definitely help in getting the training. So let us look at what is the CADI and CADEX for bone fracture analysis. So here two concepts we find in when we want to use the simulator for conducting all these procedures. So one we call it as a computer-aided detection system. So basically the computer-aided detection system help the experts or radiologists to avoid overlooking bone injuries. So when we have bone injuries, then when we look at the, by just looking at the bone injuries, we can't understand anything. Even many times when we look at the CT scan or X-ray images, many times there may be a misinterpretation also. But these CAD-E, computer-aided detection, CADEX, CAD-E, computer-aided detection systems will help in understanding exactly what way the bone injury is. Okay, what way the bone is broken, what way the injury happened over the bone, that we will understand using the CAD-E tool, CAD-E, that is computer-aided detection tool. And it can also automatically analyze, detect fracture bones. It will give you a 3D view of the entire scene, exact 3D view of the entire scene. Then what way the CADEX will help? Computer-aided diagnostics. So once we have the CAD-E report, that is the once we understand the scenario of the bone injury, we can take help of the CADEX that helps radiologists decide whether bone injuries are severe or they will decide what way the bone injury has happened, how many bones are broken, what way they are broken, whether they have broken in basically we will find some 7 ways of breakage that happen in the bones. We will see all of them in detail in the subsequent slides. So they will understand what way these breakages have happened. All that they will study in the actual scene, and these computer aided diagnosis they will help in during the diagnosis purpose. Then help to decide suitable recovery plan or process. Even after the surgery also, these tools will help in recovery plan. That means many a times we must have seen the patient will undergo the psychotherapy, okay, physiotherapy, what we call physiotherapy. So in conduct of physiotherapy, what kind of physiotherapy exercises has to be done by the patient. So in that case also, these tools will help a lot. So the CADI and CADEX systems rely on computerized imaging tools and techniques. So these are entirely the computer systems. These are entirely the software that are being developed by the software engineers, that are being developed by the researchers in the artificial intelligence and machine learning people. So they are based on image processing. Basically, we use to develop these tools, we need to use image processing, computer vision, computer graphics, virtual reality, machine learning. Such kind of tools we need to use. And nowadays, we are even having the deep learning and all. So these tools we have to use for developing such kind of simulators. So let us come to the bone anatomy. We will look at actually because we are actually we have done the research in this particular field. We have to understand how actually what is the problem involved in the bone fracture and all. So computer-aided diagnosis for bone fracture analysis. So we basically focus entirely on the bone fracture. Our focus was only on the bone fracture. Other than bone fracture, we have not focused on anything. Particularly, we have focused on the two parts of the bone, that is the hand joint and then knee part. Only two parts we focused, and on these two parts only we have collected the bones. So, as per the World Health Organization report, the road traffic injuries are major contributor for the bone fractures. If you look at the report, World Health report, bone fracture is majorly caused, that is what the patient admit to the hospitals majorly are due to the road accidents. So increase in road traffic accidents every year, that is increasing, traffic is also increasing and accidents are also increasing. Approximately 20% of orthopedic works occupied with the traumatic cases happen due to road traffic accident. Around 20% of the total patients who join with the orthopedic patients who come to hospitals are due to the road accidents. So here CADX and CADI play very important role. So what the general steps that are being followed? CADX computer diagnosis general steps that are being followed. So first thing is patient specific data collection is the first thing that the surgeons will do. So they will collect the patient specific information, such as they will ask the patients to undergo X-ray or CT scan. Even in some cases, they may go for magnetic resonance imaging also. So majorly, usually these three tests are conducted. Apart from that, there will be blood test and all to check in case of surgery if they need additional blood and all. So they can go for ordering blood. So for that, they can conduct other tests. But basically for the surgery, these X-ray or CT scan or MRI, they are very important. We will look at CT scan because we have used CT scan later in the later slides. What is actually CT scan, how it is being measured, all those things we are going to look in more detail. Then our CAD device will do pre-processing. Pre-processing is very important because when we capture the image may contain so many noise, so many unwanted information and all. So if we present the image as it is to the surgeon, then they will get confused. Possibly they will get confused with the anatomical structure of the bone part. Okay, so because it may contain so many noises, so pre-processing has to be done. We have applied so many pre-processing techniques in our methodologies. Then region of interest localization. So region of interest localization means understanding exactly where the injury has happened. Okay, so this is very important. Many times we have seen the doctors conducting. I have seen some cases where the patient had problem in the left leg, but doctor conducted surgery on the right leg. So these kind of things we have seen. So that is very big negligence on the part of the doctors. But generally it doesn't happen. But the precision surgery has to be conducted. The physician must exactly identify the location of the surgery to be done. Otherwise, what happens? They will keep on cutting the body part. That will be very dangerous for the patient also, because if they cut the body part, then blood loss will be there, and because of blood loss also, many a times during the surgery, patients die. We have seen such cases also. So, region of interest localization has to be performed by the CAD tool. So you have to design such a simulator. Then labeling. So once the region of interest is localized, once you identified the bone injury part, you need to do labeling. So labeling will help in identifying what bone has broken. See, we can identify different bones are having different names. So physicians will identify them with the names, and then how many pieces it has broken in what shape and size it is broken, it has broken. Okay, if there is any displacement, where it has gone, in which place it has been displaced. So all these will be done during the labeling. Okay, labeling gives every piece of the bone with a label. Okay, so then they will plan which bone has to be joined with which. So basically labeling will help in such a scenario. So okay, so just a minute. The organizers, can you give me presentation access? I have one more instance of my user in.
Pardon, sir?
Madam, there is, I think, some problem in my laptop. I have another instance of my user. You please give me presentation access over there. RS Hegde is there. It is there.
Okay, okay, sir. Fine, fine. Sure, sir.
Okay. Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir. The screen is visible, sir.
Okay, my presentation is visible, madam.
Yes, sir. Screen is
Okay.
visible.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for the disturbance. Okay, so I was just talking about. Okay, so CAD tool. Okay, so if we look at the.
Hello.
Madam? Is my presentation visible, madam?
Presentation is not visible, sir.
Just. Is it now visible, madam?
Yes, sir. It's visible, sir.
Okay.
Clinical aspects, right, sir?
Right. Yeah.
Fine, sir.
Okay. So if we look at the clinical aspects behind this, then we will look at the bone anatomy, because understanding bone anatomy is also very important. Then what is actually the CT scanning, that also we will understand. Then the type of fractures that are found, that also we are going to look into more detail. So let us look at the bone anatomy. As I told you, we have used only two types of bones for our purpose. That is the bone in the hand part from knee to the shoulder joint. Okay, so this part of the bone we have used, and then the leg part from thigh to the knee. Okay, these two. So the two bones, they are known as femur bone and humerus bone. So the femur bone is present in the lap, in the leg. Okay, lap that runs from hip to knee, whereas the humerus bone present in the arm. Okay, in the hand, that runs from the shoulder to elbow. Okay, so these are the longest bone in the entire human body. If we look at the other part of the bones, these two bones are longest. So if we look at the anatomy of these bones, the structure of these bone, we can divide the entire bone into two parts. That is the shaft part, what we can find in between, in the center, Okay, and then at the end two ends of the part, what we call it as epiphysis. Okay, that is upper part. One part is known as proximal epiphysis and epiphysis, and the lower part is called as distal epiphysis. Okay, and in between what we have, it is diaphysis. So bone contains basically a hard body which covers entire bone, and inside bone there will be a softer part. Okay, very what we call it is a membrane part. So it will be soft. So the long bone we can divide into two parts. One is diaphysis, that entire shaft in between part, and then the two end parts, they are commonly known as epiphysis. Okay, and among them the upper end is known as proximal epiphysis and the lower end is known as distal epiphysis. So then bone is actually, as I told you, it is made of two types of tissues. One is cortical tissues. So it is it's a dense in nature. It is made of calcium. Okay, it is very dense, very hard part. So it provides basically the strength to human. Okay, so when we are walking, running, we are doing all those things. It is because we have bone. If we don't have bone, then we must have gone like a snake and all. Okay, we may not have stood on our leg and all. We would have gone like a snake. So these provide the strength, and then they are present. These cortical tissue. It covers the outer part. It's a hollow actually. Inside that there will be a hollow region, and it will be in the outer part. Then we have a cancellous part, okay, which is also known as trabecular tissue. It is very soft, sponge-like part. So it is very soft in nature, and it helps basically in recovering the injuries. Suppose somebody, as I told you, somebody met with the accident and all. During the recovery, this will help to fast recover, to make the bones to join. Okay, they will help in joining the bone part. Then they are present inside. I told you, no, this hard part will have the hollow region. So these spongy part, this cancellous is tissue is present inside the hollow region of the bone. So the now let us look at the CT scan. Why we are using? Why? Because we are using the CT scan images for our experiment, for our research. So understanding CT structure, I mean the CT scan image details is also very important. These CT scan were developed in the year 1972, and before development of CT scan, X-ray were majorly being used. So this was developed by a person known as Godfrey Hounsfield. Okay, so even the CT scan, the density of the bone are measured based on his name, Hounsfield. We will come to that point. So basically, what is CT scan? CT scan is, in fact, it uses X-ray only. It is the multiple exposures of the X-ray. So it is formed by making use of computer as well as X-ray measurements to produce cross-sectional tomographic image. What it means, I will explain. Suppose let us assume this is the body part. Okay, you must have seen in movies and all, and many of you must have undergone the CT scan also. There will be a very big, I think I have one image for that. I will just show you that image also. Okay, here is the image. You can see the human being is put in the, actually it's a bed kind of, it's a moving bed, and there is a very big round device that itself is the CT scan device, and the patient will be put inside. It will the patient will move inside that particular round shaped device, CT scan device. And what happens here actually, the here in this round device there will be X-ray sensors. On one side of one part of the device there will be X-ray emitting devices, and on the other part there will be sensors. So as soon as the patient moves inside, what happens, this device will rotate and capture the X-ray. It will rotate and capture the continuous X-ray. So many X-ray films it captures, and it will prepare a X-ray stack. okay, a set of X-rays, what we call it as a stack, CT stack, what we call. So it will capture those images and it will capture part by part. Okay, at one part it will first capture, rotate and capture. Okay, rotate and capture. That means continuously while rotating also it will capture. Okay, you can see that rotation is shown over here. Body part will horizontally move, but that device will move in a circular shape. And then it will continuously capture the X-rays, and then piece by piece body will go inside the this CT scan device. It is something like this. The main why they use this modality, it is because what happens, suppose for example, you want to, if I see simply X-ray, it will show only, it's a 2D film, X-ray is a 2D film. We cannot be able to see a 3-dimensional view in the X-ray, in the simple X-ray, what I am calling. So, but if you want to see a 3D view, if you want to see what is there inside the entire human body in a 3-dimensional way, then these CT scan will help. How actually they help? So I will give you one example. Suppose, for example, you bring a watermelon. You must be knowing, all of you must be knowing, you go for purchasing of a watermelon and you are doubtful whether watermelon is a good quality or not. So then what you will do, you will ask the person who is selling to cut the watermelon and show before you purchase. So then person, what he will do, he will punch it and he will show the part and then he will put it back. So, but we cannot cut the human body here, no? To see directly, we can't cut and see here and there. So it is something like these CT scan will give us the slices of the body. Like for example, you cut the entire watermelon into small slices, and you can see, just open the slice and you can see, is there any kind of infection, any rotten thing is there inside the fruit and all. You can see slice by slice. Okay, so likewise when we take up the CT scan, basically it takes the human body into, captures the X-ray of human body into slices, okay, small slices, and it develops a 3D view. And when we see it, we can open and see each part. And suppose for example a tumor is there, for example, let us consider MRI. MRI is also same technology is used in MRI also. So let us assume MRI of brain. So suppose there is a tumor, what they will do, they will check slice by slice. How, at what point the tumor started to, tumor region started, okay, and how it has grown, how much area it has captured in the image, and what is the volume of the tumor. So when we look at entire scene, then they will be able to come out with a 3D view of that tumor. Okay. So same scenario happens in the CT scan also. CT scan gives us a 3D view of the entire scene, and the doctors can see slice by slice and they can understand exact anatomy of the bone, that will help in more detailed analysis rather than by just looking at the X-ray images. So it provides a clear insight into the scanned object without cutting the body. We need not cut the body. By just looking at the CT scan, we will be able to understand the exact picture of the body. Then the formation of CT images are basically formed due to slices. Again, in this, you can set the slice width, that is the movement of the body. You can set the how much body has to be moved at each step, that also you can decide. So if you keep a smaller movement, it will generate more number of X-rays and it will give you more detailed picture. If you keep the distance of the movement high, then the body will be moved at a faster pace, but you will not get the much details about the image. So these all settings will be available in the CT scan device. Then the density of material, density of the bone, what we call. So density of the bone is measured in the unit known as Hounsfield, in the name of the inventor of that device itself, Hounsfield. And the water is having 0 Hounsfield, dense bone is having 1000 Hounsfield, and the air is having -1000 Hounsfield. So by measuring the Hounsfield, because density of the bone is also important, because many times if the bone is fractured and they want to join them by screwing and putting the plate and all, then they have to drill the bone. So when they go for a drilling, they have to understand this density of the bone. If they, without studying density of the bone, if they start drilling and suppose they assume that bone is very hard, if the bone is not that hard, then the drilling machine can enter into human body. That will be very dangerous. Okay, so for that reason, these all measurements they have to do before conduct of the surgery. So this image we have just looked at. So I was talking about the CT scan. So basically it generates a stack of images. We call that as a CT stack. So CT stack, it is a comprehensive collection of the axial CT slices. So the slices what they have taken over here, they are put together. Okay, and then when they put together, when I put all the slices of the watermelon, again I will get the original watermelon. Like that, the entire body image can be generated by putting all these slices together. So when we put, basically each slice will be a two-dimensional picture. So when we put two-dimensional picture together, it will become a three-dimensional stack. So it helps in preserving depth information, to understand the depth, to understand the inside details of the injuries that have happened. This is very useful. Then they will do 3D reconstruction is possible once they put together. In fact, it will become a three-dimensional image itself. Then measuring X-ray beam attenuation of individual tissue, how much X-ray beam has to be focused and all this will also help over here. Then quantitative measurement and discrimination of individual tissue is also possible over here. Then we will look at more detail about the CT slides. So here we can see these are actual images what we have captured for our experimentation. Okay, so you can see the bone part are visible white. Okay, and the soft tissues are visible in the darker region. They are in the darker region, and bone is in the white part. What you can see, that is the bone part, bony part. So CT scan pixel intensities are directly proportional to the density of the tissue. That means, you know, bones are dense, bones are hard. Because of that, their intensity is high. You can see bright pixels are there for the bone, and the remaining body part, the muscle, the blood, the veins, they are all soft tissues. Okay, they are not hard. So because of that, you can see their intensity is dark. And then outer region, what we can see, that is air part. Okay, their intensity is totally dark. Then the intensity variation in both cortical and cancellous tissues, you can notice in two images. The first image is a cortical tissue, that is the end part of the bone. Okay, so end part of the bone will be hard generally, because the end part of the bone, it will not be hollow, it will be solid. So because of that, it will be very, very hard. Whereas in between part, what we have, okay, the shaft part, that will be hollow and it will not be hard. And because of that, you can see in the second image, the intensity of those pixels is not as bright as in what we can see in the first image. Okay, so those are related to cancellous tissues. So near diaphysis, intensity value is bright and dense, because the bone is very dense. And near epiphysis, the intensity is low. Why? Because the bones are hollow, and because of that, their density is low. So because of that, we can see the lighter pixels. So okay, so let us look at the fracture types. We find basically 7 types of fractures. Okay, I mean, the surgeons classify the fractures into 7 types. What are those? So the 7 types are called as green stick, transverse, oblique, spiral, avulsed, segmental, and then communicated. Okay, so 7 types of fractures you can see. So what are those? So if there is a hair crack, we call, many a times you must have heard. Okay, so sometimes we slip on these steps and all, and because of that, we will feel severe pain in the leg. Okay, so we will feel as though nothing has happened, but when we go to doctor, then doctor after conducting X-ray, they will say there is a hair crack. Hair crack means bone is not broken into 2 pieces. There is a crack in the bone. that is also very dangerous. It also pains a lot. Even if only hair crack is there, that also will be that also gives a lot of pain. So that is known as green stick. Okay, such a fracture is known as green stick. Suppose, for example, a bone is clearly broken into two pieces at the center. Okay, somewhere clearly broken vertically. Okay, so such a fracture is known as transverse fracture. Okay, and suppose, for example, the bone is broken in the cross section, then such a breakage is called as oblique. And if bone is broken in a spiral way, okay, like a twisted way, then that is known as a spiral fracture. Then if the bone is broken at the end part, some piece has come out from the entire bone, okay, in the end part of the bone, any one end part of the bone, then that is called as avulsed. Okay, then if the bone is broken into three pieces, then it is called as segmental. And then if bone is broken into many pieces, then it is known as communicated fracture. Many pieces. Okay, so communicated fracture we can find in the major accidents. So if there is a major accident, then bone will get broken into many pieces. We call that as a communicated fracture. So understanding what kind of fracture it is very, very important. Why? Because based on this only the surgical planning will be done by the physicians. Physicians will plan what way the surgery has to be conducted, how the surgery has to be conducted, all that they will plan based on this. Now let us look at the two, one healthy bone and one fractured bone. You can see the first row, we can find both bones at the near the shaft as well as near joint. Both of them are healthy. Okay, both of them are healthy. Whereas same we can find the broken bones. Okay, in the second row, fractured bones. So you can see in the near shaft the bone is broken into two pieces. Okay, two pieces, and they even got displaced also. Not only broken, they got displaced also. You can see the position has been a displacement has happened in the bone. Okay, they are not actually they should be round shape. Okay, even if there is a break, then they should appear something like just near to each other with a small gap, but they have got displaced also. And in the second image also, actually they are fractured, but they are not clearly visible by looking at us, but definitely the physicians will be able to identify the fracture in that bone. So for our experiment, we have done extensive data collection. Okay, we have collected both fractured bones as well as, I will show you the details about our image database. We have collected fractured as well as the normal bones also. We have created, in fact, a bone database, a very standard database we have collected. I will talk about that, what kind of images we have collected, that also I am going to discuss. So the role of medical image is very, very important in the disease diagnosis and prognosis. So this is very, very important. Images, medical images are very important. Anybody want to do any research in the medical line, first thing what I suggest is you have to collect the images. That is very, very important. If you don't have images, then you can't do any research at all. Doing research without the images is it is impossible. And you know, the doctors are so busy, they will not give you time, they will not give you images also, because there are so many rules and regulations are there. We will talk about them also. We are still facing such problem. Okay, so if you have not properly used the if you have not properly followed the rules in collecting images, then even many of the journals will not accept your paper. They say you have to produce the certificates. There are so many certification bodies. You have to obtain certificates to conduct the experiment. There are so many difficulties in conducting the research in medical line. So the role of CT image in analyzing bone trauma severity. So we have used the CT scan images. So these images played very important role in our experimentation, in development of our orthopedic simulator. Then generally you can find these images in the hospitals or in the radiology centers also. There are specific radiology centers who conduct only CT scan, only MRI. Okay, so you can collect the images from there. depending on the kind of images you need. We have collected both from hospital as well as from a radiology center. I will tell you from where we have collected our data. So you need to have a huge amount of data, large amount of data. If you are working with the four images, 5 images, 10 images, then it is not enough. You should have huge amount of data. Why? Because if you conduct your experiment on only few images, then your results will be biased. Okay, whatever the methodology you do, whatever the methodology you put forth, they may give biased results. So that's why having large amount of data is very much essential for any experiment, not only medical imaging. For any experiment, they are very essential. And then we face a lot of problem in collecting data. Why? Because many of the people, many of the hospitals or radiology centers hesitate in giving the images because of so many rules I was telling. There is a ethical law rule like named as HIPAA, okay, Health Insurance Probability, Prohibitory Portability and Accountability Act, okay. So in fact, when we gone for publication of one of our research findings, the journal asked us to produce this HIPAA certificate. So we have processed it, somehow we got it. Again, we had to add one doctor, because the HIPAA will not issue certificate to us directly. They will issue certificate only to doctors. So we need to add one doctor in our article as a co-author. In fact, there were doctors because we were working with the doctors. So we had to obtain certificate on their name, not on our name, because they denied that they will not give you certificate. So because of that, we have to obtain in their name. Then there is another rule called as patient-specific data sharing protocols. For that, IRB, that is Institutional Review Board. So within each institution, there will be a review board. Okay, so even we have to obtain the certificate from them also. These are very much essential if you want to go for a high-end, good quality research. So what we did is we collected these images, these CT scan images from two centers. One is one from a hospital and another from a radiology centers. So there is one hospital, government hospital in Solapur. Since this work I have done when I was in Solapur University. So we collected the images from Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Sarvopachar Rugnalaya. It's a government hospital, civil hospital in short. So we collected many images from them, and we also collected images from a radiology center known as Prism Medical Diagnostic Center. They had CT scan and they had huge data of images. We collected from them also. Then we obtained written permission while collecting the data. And even we completed the certification, that is HIPAA certification and IRB certification. All this we have completed. Okay, then only we can go for publication and all. Otherwise, you can't do publication in good journals. So no CT scan was performed by us. Okay, so we have to understand that as a computer science engineers, as a machine learning AI developer, we cannot do any CT scan. Okay, so CT scanning will be done by experts, surgery will be done by experts. Our task is only to help them, only to assist them. Only we have to help them, and we don't do anything. We cannot give them suggestions. We can only assist them. So patient-specific cases were pulled from archives and clinical case loads. Again here, when we collect the data, we have to follow the rules that the patient information should not be leaked out. That also we have taken care. Okay, why? Because these patient-specific informations are in fact it's a violation of the patient's basic right. Okay, so we should not do that. That also we have taken care. No CT scan protocols were no CT scanning protocols were prescribed. So technically, if you look at the device, what we have, from where we have captured the image. So in civil, we have used these are the details. Okay. So in Prism, we have used Siemens device. In fact, Siemens device was there. In civil, there was a device known as PNMS. So these are the specifications of those devices, technical specifications. We will not much bother about those technical specifications. Then what kind of images we have included for our experiments? See, so many images we have collected, but we didn't include all the images for our experiment. So the CT cases included in our images were the CT scans from diagnostic studies included in the database where all the CT scans for diagnostic studies which have been they were included and their thickness must be minimum 5 mm. So I told you, no, when we are capturing the CT scan, the patient body will be moved inside the device, okay, the CT scan device, the round shaped device, and when they are capturing, minimum the thickness should be less than 5 mm. Okay, that is thickness of that CT slice should be less than 5 mm. Okay, if it is more than 5 mm, we didn't consider such images. Why? Because we will lose vital information from the CT stack. So for that reason, we have considered less than 5 mm. The maximum thickness should be 5 mm. Then the fracture cases, what we have included. As I told you, we have only worked on the leg and the humerus bone and humerus bone. Okay, we have used only these two types of bones. So CT cases having communicated fracture only we considered. I told you 7 types of fractures are there. So the last one communicated comminated fracture were being used. We used only comminated fractures, and then near the joint of upper and lower limb bone, okay, near the joint we preferred using. So why I am specifying all this? Because I will later show you we have conducted experiments and we got the results. We should be very specific on what parts we have used for our experiment. Okay, whenever you are conducting such whenever you are taking up such kind of research, you should be very specific. Okay, you can't take any whatever image you get and do simply experiment. So then when it goes for the review, they will ask, you have used so many types of bones, you yourself are confused with what type of bone you have used and all. So we should be specific and we should know what type of bone we have used, and all that details we should be aware of before we go for a conducting the experiment, getting the results and all. Then we have done annotation also. We have got the images annotated by physicians, and then we conduct the experiment. Let us look at what way we have done the annotation, what way we got the annotation done by the physician. So basically annotation means drawing the boundary of the injured part or the diseased part or the fracture part, whatever we call. So annotation is basically a very tedious task because it takes extremely huge amount of time. Okay, we have to be very careful. Even if a few pixel mistake we do, that will affect on the results also. So then these are being done by the resident doctors. Okay, residents, the trainees. Okay, you know the senior physicians will be so busy, they will not. It's very difficult to get their time. So we took the help of the junior doctors. Even we gave some remuneration out of our project to them to get the images annotated, okay, in the radiology department and in the civil hospital, then tested and corrected by the professors. We have cross-tested, cross-checked these images with the senior doctors who are guiding those junior resident doctors. So we cross-checked whether the annotation is correct or not. If there is any mistake, then we got them corrected also. So this way we got annotated. Annotated these images for our reference purpose. So tested and corrected by professors in radiology and expert orthopedic surgeons. Then detailed outline around the boundary were drawn. You can see in this picture we have drawn the boundary. Okay. In middle picture, you can see the boundary is drawn in 2 colors. One is red, another one is the yellowish color. So then separate color were used for different bones. Then we have even blue color annotation also. So different bones annotation were done using different color. In fact, we purchased one for that one pointer pen. Okay, that is a digital pen, which is very high precision pen. Okay, it gives the at pixel level it gives the precision of drawing the boundary. So then for this we used a software called we considered every 10th slice of a non-bone fracture. So suppose we have taken a bone, and if that part doesn't contain any fracture, we have considered 10th slice. If there is a fracture, then we have considered every slice for the purpose of annotation. And then we use the 3D paint software along with the PC, okay, to do this annotation, manual annotation. The 3D paint software has been used, and a software called as Meko 2G high sensitivity stylus. I told you, no, digital pen, what we call it as a stylus. We used Meko 2G high sensitivity stylus. So we all purchased these under our project. What I told you, we had a project over there from Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. So then data anonymization is very important. I told you, you should remove all the patient details, their name, sex, age, all that has to be removed. Okay, patient ID, all that. So we used the DICOM header, okay, DICOM images. So DICOM images, you know, they contains a header, and in that header, all the patient specific information will be available. So we separated that DICOM header from the image part. So it primarily contains, this DICOM header primarily contains specific, patient specific information such as patient ID, name, sex, age, and all these. Then even date of conduct of surgery, time of conduct of surgery, all not surgery, date and time of capturing the image and all these information will be available over there. Then other information such as the several identifiers, body part examined, then image dimension, metric size, and other acquisition parameters will also be available in the DICOM, that image DICOM part. So this information is necessary for identifying the details of the patient. So to maintain relationship between CT scan and slice image. So these informations are necessary. Essential for computer to display image correctly also, because if we know the image parameters, then only we can display the image in the proper way. But the patient name, patient sex, age, these are not necessary for our experiment. So to maintain patient's privacy, so detaching entire DICOM header is not a good option. We need dimension information, metric size information, other parameters are required. But patient name, patient age, patient address, all those details are not required. So we removed what is not required, what is confidential information, and then we kept the remaining information as it is. So then how much images we have collected for our experiment? So for that we have collected around 24 patient specific CT cases, 24 CT stacks, okay, not images, 24 CT stacks. So in each CT stacks there will be hundreds of images. So total CT images that were there were 5,684 CT images were there. Okay, total images. So among 24 cases, 8 were upper limb part. In that 2,057 CT images were there, and 16 images were 16 cases were lower limb part. Okay, and among them in the 16 cases, 3,626 CT images were there. Okay, so on average in each CT case there were 257 images. Okay, on average, not exactly, on average. On average in each CT stack, okay, in each patient specific CT image, CT case, what we call, not CT image, CT case, there were 200, on average there were 257 images. Now if we look at more detailed, okay, how many left knee we considered, how many right knee we considered, left shoulder, right shoulder, and total images. So among 24, 4 cases were from left knee. Among them we considered, you can see details, how many were the minimum CT images in each case, minimum among all 4, maximum among all 4, and average number of slices. Then the right knee, okay, left knee, leg knee, and right knee. Right knee we have collected 12 cases, and then left shoulder 1 case, right shoulder 7 cases. Okay, so this way total 24 CT cases were considered. Among them 5,684 CT images we have considered for our experiment. Then we performed a very systematic storage structure. Why? Because we want to share this database with the public. Our paper is at the almost last stage of our publication. Okay, it is already accepted. That's what it was pending because we didn't produce HIPAA certificate. So we have obtained that also. Now we have produced that also to the journal. Now it is in the last phase of publication. Once that get published, we will make this data public. Already we have stored this in the server. Only thing is sharing the link is pending. So then how we have removed unwanted artifacts? As I told you, unwanted artifacts generally you find in all the medical images, particularly CT scan, endoscopy, MRI, X-rays. You can find these unwanted artifacts. So what kind of unwanted artifacts you can find? It may be a CT bed, there may be cables, or there may be a flush. So these can create hurdle in understanding the scene properly. So artifacts may produce difficulty in developing the CAD system also. Okay, when you are when you are designing the 3D view, they may create a problem. So techniques applied to remove what the technique we have applied is cropped from all directions for each. We cropped the image first to focus only on our region of interest. So thereby this process removes all the other parts of the unwanted part of the entire image. Then we use the histogram modeling, okay, histogram based techniques to improve the image quality. So to increase the contrast of the image, we use the histogram based techniques. You can find more details of these histogram based technique in any literature, specifically Gonzalez and Woods, digital image processing by Gonzalez and Woods. You can find more detail. So histogram stretching we applied. Okay, this is one of the image enhancement technique. So this histogram stretching provide global information of the. It is not a local technique. It is a global technique. That means it is applicable to entire image, not to any particular part of the image. So it can be used for enhancing the entire image. Then the histogram says CT image. CT images are generally low contrast images. So contrast enhancement is required. Because of that, we gone for the histogram stretching. So this is the algorithm for histogram stretching. I will not go much in detail. You can just go through any of the books, any literature, even you can find in the website and all. You can just search histogram technique. Even the ready algorithm may also be available. You can use them. Then this is the entire flow diagram of our region of interest extraction process. So we performed a unique labeling also. I told you, no, we have given the label to each and every fractured piece. I will show you that also during the when I go for showing the results. You can see here. I will go a little bit fast because of time constraint. So you can see here these are original images in the first column, and in the second column labeling has been done. So this labeling has been done not manually, it is done by our experiment. You give any kind of image, our algorithm will be able to properly give the label. What way we have done the labeling? So first we will give one label to each fracture bone. So suppose there are 3 bones, we will give number 1 to 1 bone, number 2 to second bone, number 3 to third bone. So suppose, for example, first bone is broken into 2 pieces. Then we will give one is already given the first label. Then we will add one more one to that for the first piece in that. Then for second piece, it will be 2 added to it. So you can see in the second one, 1, 1, 1, 2. This is the first piece of the first bone, and this is the second piece of the first bone. Likewise, in the second bone also there are 2 pieces. So 2, 1, 2, 2. 2 is the first digit is the label of the entire bone, and second digit will be the label of specific piece in that entire bone. So 2, 1, 2, 2. So this way labeling is done by our algorithm. So our algorithm does this labeling. So you can see here more detailed one cortical tissue. Actual images are shown here. They are labeled. I told you, no, we are labeling with a different color boundaries also. So you can see each tissue, each broken bone. Uh, each broken bone is annotated with a different color boundary. You can see different color annotation has been performed. Likewise, you can see cancellous tissue also. So this we have compared this with the manual annotation also. I told you, no, we got manual annotated and then we compared both of them. Okay, we found out how much is the accuracy of our results. So I will show you the accuracy. So we used a different methodology: threshold, active contour, region growing, and our proposed method. So you can see the thresholding method. This is, I think, done by others. It has given 84.2%. The active contour provided 90% accuracy. Then region growing provided us 92.32% accuracy, and our proposed method given 95.45% of accuracy. So finally, we have done this all experimentation. I have shown you in detail. Here we have, this is basically used for the computer-aided diagnosis purpose. So the system for bone fracture detection and analysis we have presented over here, and we have proposed the CAD system involving basically 3 steps. That is, through our experiment, we have removed the flesh part. It comes under the pre-processing. It's basically a simple and precise histogram modeling we have used, and contrast stitching based pre-processing techniques have been adopted over here, and it is responsible for removing unwanted artifacts and as well as the flesh and enhance the bony region in the image. Then we have extracted region of interest. This is done through a connected component based segmentation algorithm. I have shown you that algorithm also that we have designed, and we have performed through this the labeling of the fractured pieces. Okay, and we have assigned unique labeling. Okay, I have shown you how we have done unique labeling, assigned unique label to each fractured bone piece while taking bone anatomy into consideration. Okay, bone anatomy has to be considered. Why? Because if we wrongly do labeling, the doctors will join one bone to another bone. Okay, and then they will stitch. That will be a horrible situation. So proper anatomy has to be followed here. Then hierarchical technique we have adopted while doing the labeling. So what the result we got? We have tested on real patient specific CT stats, actual images we have tested. We have even got the manual annotation done by the experts also. We compared this with the clinical ground truth, and we have achieved 95% accuracy, and compared with the previous methods also, and definitely we can claim that our technique is better as compared to the others. So still my student is working on this. He has even though submitted the thesis, he is working on the development of actual simulator. Maybe we will do something more. Already we have progressed in this direction. So we are planning to make database publicly available. As I told you, shortly we will make it available. In this study, every 10th slice is annotated. As we told, we can go for the normal images. We can go for even every slice annotation. That is the time consuming, but in future we can do that. Then we aim to develop a machine learning based technique also, which will be a semi supervised technique. We plan to employ modern database driven segmentation methods such as RetinaNet and mask RCNN. Okay, so neural networks. So to automatically segment and label fractured bones. So we want to use advanced technologies in neural networks, deep learning and all, to make automatic bone fracture segmentation and labeling. So we aim to develop time and space efficient volume visualization model to visualize fracture bone in 3D planes. So these are some of the aims what we are planning for. So we want to do all this in the future work. So these are some of the public publications. Actually, details are very old. I think now they must have got more and more indexes also. As I told you, one we have already communicated to same journal, that is Springer Journal of Medical Systems, and it is at the stage of publication. So the student has done really good work. We have done quite a good number of publications. So this is my presentation. If anyone have any questions, you are free to ask.
We see Dr. Siddesh sir has one question, I think. Has raised the hand. Participants, if you have any questions, please post the question. Okay, I think if there are no questions, we can tell the participants that you can write to Dr. Hegde sir later if you have any doubts or any clarifications about the work.
Why I am not able to put on the video?
Okay, if there are no questions, let us wind the session. We hereby thank Dr. Hegde sir for giving a wonderful session. It was a completely different experience for all the image processing researchers. Different dimension of work is being also discussed over here, including the ethical factors that one has to follow in performing the research work in medical field. Sir, thank you very much for your wonderful session, sir.
Hello.
Sir, it's not audible.
Hello.
Hello.
Am I audible, madam?
Yes, sir.
Now you are audible, sir.
Okay. So I would like to just share my email address if anybody want to.
Yes, sir, please.
Know my anybody
And
want to know.
also we have put up your details in the blog, sir.
Okay. So anybody can mail to me. I would like to thank the organizers. Geeta madam was continuously in touch with me in successfully conducting this session. I thank college. I thank particularly Guru sir who has recommended my name for this workshop. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very
Thank you,
much
sir.
for the informative session, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Bharti madam.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam.
Thank you all. We shall meet back at 2:30 p.m.
Hello.
Yeah, anybody has that doubt?
Yeah, ma'am. Actually, not the doubt. Ma'am, can we get link of some case studies which have been discussed in this session as well as in previous sessions? Link to the case studies and some paper which we can refer in order to understand the bioscience or bioengineering.
Okay, madam. Oh, okay. Madam, actually on this both factors, on this database itself, we have written an article. And apart from that, we have the articles. What you can do, you can either mail me or
Okay.
you can send a request over there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.